Oh, maybe you guys can help me here. I'm confused. Bill Maher got the vaccine, then he got COVID. He just got it. Came out yesterday and said that. And so he's not doing his show.
It's like the first time in his career he's missed a show.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Okay, so apparently if you get the vaccine, you can still get COVID, obviously, yes. Bill Maher. Is it that you're less likely to give it to someone if you have received the vaccine?
No.
That's not the case.
It's that your body can quickly fight off the infection without causing you to go through the disease, the symptoms.
You're less likely to get symptoms. And asymptomatic spread is possible or is not possible?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
I'm not a doctor.
No, we don't know.
And that's something we should probably know, having gone through a pandemic for a year.
It's just that there's been conflicting reports. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm always just like, for a lot of things, if someone told me like, what do I do if I break my arm? I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not a doctor. Said it. If someone asks for first aid advice, okay, I've done hostile environment training. I can give you some general first aid advice. But this stuff is contentious, tribal. I just say talk to a doctor to figure out what makes sense. And what happened with Bill Maher, he got sick, but he's asymptomatic because he's been vaccinated. So you can still get it, but you can't, you're not going to die from it.
So I guess the people that got vaccinated they still think there's a chance they might get it and that people might asymptomatically spread it. So they're putting the mask on just to be safe.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I think people just don't know and they're scared.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think this whole time, most people did not know what was happening.
They don't. Well, I think the big divide between, in the culture war is what I refer to as the uninitiated and the initiated. The people who pay attention to politics, who watch the videos, and the people who just passively hear things. So if you're following a lot of this news, you're probably a lot more relaxed about everything because you've seen the reports, you've seen the numbers in Texas and Florida going down, you've seen Fauci's statements, and you're probably like, okay, I think we're going to be all right. And if you don't pay attention, all you see is masks everywhere and warning signs and street closures and cities shut down. So you're really scared about it. I think a good example is like Kyle Rittenhouse, where if you follow, we've had Richie McGinnis here numerous times, and I don't know if you're familiar. He's the journalist who was actually there and actually rendered aid to the man. So he tells us what happens, and we get a clear picture, and we're like, oh, that's really interesting. But then I hear from people who don't pay attention to the news, Kyle Rittenhouse took a gun across state lines and did all these things, none of which is true. So they're angry, and they have this distorted view of things. A lot of my friends, I have a really good friend of mine who's like, I want to come and visit, but, I'm really worried about traveling. And I'm just like, whatever makes sense for you. And they're like, once I get my vaccine, I'll think I'll figure out if I can do it or not. And I'm like, it's by all means. In terms of the show, I'll give you a better example. There was, I'll just mention the people. There's a very famous leftist, Hassan Piker. He's got one of the biggest Twitch shows. He's got a big YouTube channel. And he's one of the most prominent. I think he's a democratic socialist. I don't want to label people.
I think so.
But I tweeted, it's very difficult for us to get leftists on this show because they just refuse to do it. They're scared of being canceled. I don't know. And then I had two personalities, one of which was Hassan, and they quote tweeted me saying, I'll come on your show. And I was like, fantastic.
Yes.
Dude, I mean, Hassan on the show would be awesome. Yeah. I'd be so excited for that. He's a popular leftist. We'd have great conversation. We'd probably disagree on a lot of things. And I said, we'll pay for your travel. Let me know what dates are good for you. And then he messaged me and said, oh, bro, COVID, I can't travel. Now, to be fair, this was last year when, this was I think around August or whatever. People were a lot more worried. Basically every single leftist we reached out to said, because of COVID, I won't travel.
Last night I was looking.
But real quick, every single conservative personality was like, where and when? No questions, no issues. And I would say a decent amount of the conservatives who got the vaccine. Mm-hmm. A decent amount didn't, and they say, I'll take responsibility for myself. And for most of I would say we followed all the guidelines. It wasn't that crazy out here to follow the guidelines. We have hand sanitizer. We restrict how many people can come in. Not hard to do. And conservatives didn't seem to have an issue with it. But people on the left, mortified.
I was looking at Mont Saint Michel. It's an abbey in France. Have you ever heard of this place? It's on an island. It was this duchy of Normandy, and it's this beautiful giant island monastery. And I was like, oh, I want to go there. I can just go there for a weekend and check it out. And then I realized oh yeah, COVID. And I just what a hassle. I don't even know what France's regulations are. Standing in line, being around them, am I masked? Am I vaccinated? I just gave it all up. I can't. I feel like I can't even travel because of this.
You can't.
We went to Aruba a couple weeks ago with my family. we had to jump through hoops to do it. But I was like, you know what? I'm done. We've had a terrible year with loss in our family. You talk about us in COVID, but the kids, my children, 12 years old, 10 years old, wearing those masks in school when there's hardly any risk for them to get it, going outside for a 10-minute mask break, not being able to socialize with their friends, having plastic around their desks. It is soul crushing.
I think what people need to realize about their kids too is that I think, we're all a bit older. So for us, we've experienced so much. Our personalities have formed. We've become mature adults. To someone who's 10 years old, a day is a lot longer because they're forming these experiences. They're developing into the people they'll become in the future. So when you take a year, which is a tenth of a 10-year-old's life, 10% of their life, and you turn it into this thing, that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives.
I know it has. My 10-year-old, I feel it. I know it. He every day, Mom, when is it over? This is the worst year of my life. Yes. I mean, and it manifests itself in different ways. We had this little fish, this betta fish, for like 8 months, and we loved it. And the betta fish unfortunately died. But my Theodore, the 10-year-old, has been so upset over that fish. And I know that obviously as a young kid going through something like that and as a loss, but I know it's magnified by all of this that we're going through.
Yeah.
The deaths in our family, yes. But the fact that he can't be a normal kid, I mean, he's going to remember this for the rest of his life. It's just it's a year that they have lost. And the teacher thing. I mean, I haven't talked about this a lot, but, my 10-year-old had an issue with the online learning. He just was not able to really process the information through the iPad, and it was getting to the point where he wasn't learning anything. And so we put him in Catholic school because they were going to school. The teachers were there. They were in person. And we made that decision because he just was having such a hard time doing this remote learning. And I talked to so many parents that are worried about their kids that went through a year of this that really didn't learn much of anything.
Yeah.
And it's so disappointing. I mean, I love our teachers. It really is a noble profession, right? But the ones that, didn't get vaccinated or continue to not go into schools, well, why are you a teacher then?
Have you been concerned at all with critical race theory in the schools?
Of course.
Have you seen anything like that?
I haven't. I worry. Listen, I grew up in Canada, and my best friend was Indian, but I never looked at that. I never looked at her by the color of her skin. I would go over to her house, and I would love to learn about her traditions and her family. And nowadays it would be like, well, you have to acknowledge the color of her skin. Yeah. And I am of the belief that, I want to be colorblind. I don't want to, judge somebody by my color or their color. And I know that that's taboo to say that these days.
Isn't that the progressive position from the era of civil rights? That's what they wanted. And now the kids are going to school. I bring this up just because you mentioned, the iPad learning stuff, and a lot of parents were finally seeing their kids were learning this crazy racist, and not just racist stuff, critical theory in general encompasses all aspects of identity. And then decided to send their kids to private schools, to Catholic schools. Mm-hmm. So I was curious if that...
No, but I will say that has been one thing that we've been able to see online. Watching these online courses, you see these teachers, how they really are. We're lucky because I believe that in our school district, they're in it for the right reasons. But man, the stuff that you are seeing, some of the parents that are, calling out these teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. So maybe that's that's the wrong word, silver lining,
No,
but
that's
maybe that is something that, we're now paying attention to because of this.
Oh, good point.
I think it's, a lot of people don't like to say something like this, but, when God closes a door, he opens a window or something like that. There's always, you look on the brighter side, things like that. People don't want to say that because the pandemic's been so brutal to a lot of people, but it's never just black and white. If there's something that came out of this that could be, at least in some way, considered to be beneficial, it's that parents got a warning about, what was going on. Teachers were freaking out. early on in the pandemic, there was like a viral video where one teacher was saying, we have to make sure the parents don't hear what they're telling their kids. How do we deal with this? These Zoom meetings are so bad because the parents are now figuring out we're teaching their kids this crazy stuff. That's creepy. Yeah. The parents should get a pamphlet being like, here's what we teach your kids. Mm-hmm. And the parents should be able to go to their kids and say, what did you learn today? Apparently they're being told, don't tell your parents I told you this. Creepy indoctrination.
Gross.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will say that I will remember this past year is I've been at home. Since for a year now, I've been doing weather in a spare bedroom in my house. They made a green screen. I never thought it was possible. Like a few years ago, people would say, oh, why don't you just build a green screen in your house and you don't have to go in and do the weather anymore? And I thought, oh, that's never going to happen. Well, here we are. Wow. The one thing that I will say is just being at home and seeing my kids every day. That's something that's been very special to me. I'll love this year for that very reason, just to be connected to them.
Working from home is incredible. I started in 2012 and never looked back. I can't ever. We tried the office thing a little bit, but the commute? I mean, an hour a day, 2 hours a day? Come on. What a waste of hours, in my opinion.
I love it. I do. I mean, I miss going in and seeing my friends and my coworkers. But I'll be honest, if I could do this for the rest of my career, I probably would.
But you would go out and talk to people on the street too and everything.
Yeah, right? Of course. I do miss that.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Do. Yeah. I hope that we get back to that.
Regarding kids that are having trouble learning, like you were talking about, I think it was your son earlier. Do you know are the schools being like lenient about this? Are they passing kids through without getting good grades?
That's a good question. I think some are. I really think this has been a lost year for a lot of children. I really think that some kids should, go through the same grade again. I mean, I don't think that will happen, but I saw, my child go through this just, trying to focus on the screen and not being, my Theodore is somebody that needs to be interactive with people and have someone in front of him sort of, showing him. So I really think that I had to do the right thing and get him back into school because that's the way he learns the best.
And it's a private Catholic school, so you're probably getting, I'm not trying to disparage public schools, but I imagine it's better.
In some ways, yeah. I mean, my other son is still in the public school, but he had no problem sort of doing that transition at home. So I have one in the public school, which I love. I was brought up in the public school system. But for my other son who needed to have that interaction, and I will say the Catholic schools did it better.
Do you think that this whole Zoom thing has been harder on boys? Because I know they have such a greater level of energy than girls.
I think that there might be something to that, but I'm not a psychologist,
right.
But I'm sure that they could probably tell you. I'm sure they'll be doing studies after this.
Yeah, they're saying no more snow days anymore.
That's, as a person who does the weather, boo.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, snow day, right?
Yeah.
You're in school and it snows, and then you're sitting there staring at the news, and then they're like, "There's."
Best
well,
days of the year.
so when I was a kid, when we didn't use the internet, back in my day, we had the TV, and it would be snowing, and it would be a couple inches. We'd have the TV on, and they'd be announcing school closures, and we'd be like, "Come on!" And then they'd say, Mark Twain Elementary, yes, and then we run outside, make snowballs, and throw them. Now they're like. And the schools that will be doing remote learning today in the storm will be.
Gross.
Can I tell you a secret? That happened with my kids, and I was like, "You're off sick today."
Yeah. Yes. I love it.
That'd be cool if they gave kids like one day a month that they just didn't have to go in or something.
That's a great idea.
But they do. I mean, there's holidays.
Yeah.
But like a kid's choice day or something.
Pick a
That's
day.
a great idea. I think we need more of that.
Mm-hmm. Actually, maybe more than one. Maybe like 5 and non-consecutive days where the kid can choose to take a permitted absence.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they still have to do the homework or whatever.
So getting on to this tangent, we talked about the fact that I took my family to Aruba, and it was great. But I will tell you, just going through the hoops of the COVID tests, getting the COVID test beforehand, then going to the airport and having to check your luggage and going up to the ticket counter and them checking your documentation to show that you got the COVID test. And then, if you don't have it online, my husband had it online and they were like, no, we need to see the paperwork. And thank goodness he did the paperwork because they didn't want to do the online thing. So you're in line for 2 hours, socially distancing to get onto the flight. We went through like several security checkpoints to show them our documentation to get on the plane. You finally get on the plane, then you arrive in Aruba. And the same thing, you've got to show the people at the airport that you have your documentation, and then they give you passes. So that when you get to the hotel, you have to show them the pass that you got at the airport to prove that you had your COVID test.
Oy.
Oh, it was, listen, It was lovely that we were there and we were able to go to a beautiful place for a few days with our family. But the hoops that you had to go through, and I think a lot of it is political theater.
I'm lucky. I'm grateful. I got to travel around the world before all these lockdowns and everything. In the past 10 years, I've been to dozens upon dozens of countries that a lot of people aren't going to be able to do anymore. I mean, it's not just about getting the tests. Some of these places require you to spend like 2 weeks
Right.
in a hotel.
Quarantine.
And like $2,000 up front. People aren't going to be able to travel.
I haven't seen my mom in over a year and a half because she lives in Canada still. And it's not good there. She was in lockdown very recently because she lives in Ontario and the numbers were going up. So they basically said you were housebound for a month. We do the Zoom time and stuff with her. But I mean, I worry about, her not getting out. She's almost 80 years old and she's a fit 80-year-old. And the other thing about Canada is that they have been terrible with the vaccines. Terrible. So bad. My mom just got her first dose and she's almost 80 years old.
Wow. What was the problem?
The Canadian government.
You don't say.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be doing all that well.
No. I mean, a lot of people, I think Canada and their healthcare system needs to be more of a story here in the U.S., to be honest with you. I have MS. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 16 years ago. And a story that I tell people is that I was actually almost diagnosed in Canada, but they told me I had to go back to the U.S. to get an MRI because I would be on a waiting list for over a year to get an MRI to be diagnosed.
Yeah, one of my friends brought her dad back to the U.S. to have cancer treatment because they were going to put him on a list too. It was going to be something like 4 months. When you have cancer, you don't have 4 months.
Canada's great if you're healthy and you don't have like a chronic illness.
Do they have private healthcare too? Do they mix it up?
I would guess that you could probably, if you're wealthy, you could do that, or you just come to the U.S.
If you're dirt poor or homeless, I'm sure you'll take a wait list over nothing. I guess, however, in the United States, emergency rooms have to admit you, but there's still some complications. I don't want to get too personal, but there's some stories, I know with people in my life where they were stuck in Canada wishing they could get to the United States for proper healthcare treatment because in Canada, they don't have the same level of technology.
Right.
That is correct.
Access.
And part of the reason the MRI machines is because they didn't have them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I mean, listen, I grew up there. I have fond memories of being in Canada. But as somebody who has a chronic illness and we really have the best healthcare in the world.
Yep.
When did you leave Canada?
I was in my mid-20s.
What made you want to leave, or what made you decide?
Career choices. I felt like, I truly believe I'm one of those people living the American dream because I wanted to be a broadcaster, and I felt in Canada they kind of put a cap on what I could do. Well, you're doing the job that you should be doing right now, and you really can't go much further than that. Whereas I felt like, I applied for a job in New York City and got in my car, and I didn't have much money and packed a suitcase, and I moved to New York.
But man, having to be surrounded by all of those evil white supremacists at Fox News must be just so difficult. I'm kidding.
I know you are. I've been
just
there
for the viewers, though.
I've been there 18 years, and truly, it's like they're like my family. I've made some very good friends there, and I feel really lucky to work there.
But you're in New York.
Yeah.
I've heard from many people that a lot of the people who work at Fox News in New York are actually liberals.
Well, to be quite honest with you, no one asks who the person voted for. Like when I went for my job interview, no one asked me who I voted for, or whether I identify as a Republican or a Democrat. That was never asked, and I don't know who. Actually, you know what? There are some people that I work with that I know are not Republican, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, as it should. That's the way it should be. Yeah. But I was talking to somebody. I've been in and out of the Fox building. I've been on Jesse Waters' show quite a bit, and people were telling me, like, it's New York. What do you think? You think the people in New York City are all a bunch of conservatives? So of course there are like liberals who work at Fox News, but these are the people that might be liberal, but working alongside conservatives, don't view them as Nazis or whatever stupid lie the other media outlets are pushing. But I guess the name of the game today in media is hyper-partisan, tribalism. And it's the weirdest thing that, growing up, Fox News was the bad network, Bill O'Reilly and sun goes up, sun goes down. You can't explain that kind of stuff. And now, for whatever reason, maybe it's just political or maybe something really happened. Fox News is the outlet actually bringing on opposition voices, actually having challenging, conversations. And the other outlets are just Trump sucks, the right are bad people, Fox News evil.
Right. Well, those it's not rating anymore, though, the Trump sucks stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Who cares?
What are they going to do next? They got to think of another plan.
Well, they tried going after Tucker. Mm-hmm. Brian Stelter over at CNN was like, Tucker is the new Trump, and no one cared. Mm-hmm. I see what they were trying to do. CNN had this really long streak of Trump sucks, and it did really well for them in ratings. Without Trump, they need to find a new villain. They tried Tucker. Didn't really work because Tucker is not the president. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.